question.
Look at my face. Do you want to do with your Bible?
Answer that question.
Right now.
I've asked you a question.
You always want to go to the Quran.
Zachariah, answer the question.
You always want to go to the Quran. You can never do with your Bible.
Answer the question.
You can never do with your own Bible.
Okay,
Your Bible
Zachariah doesn't want to answer the question.
Okay, Jeremiah 8 verse 8.
Would you like to answer the question?
You don't listen to any
I am
answer.
listening.
You don't listen to any answer.
You don't want to talk to me.
You are speaking.
Can you answer the question?
Speaking this way is like walking against a concrete wall. You have made a point. You have decided that you don't want to accept any answer. That's the point you're making.
Okay, so you don't want to answer the question. Okay, is there any Muslim here that wants to answer the question I've just asked? The Quran says that it is a detailed exposition of all things. So show me in the Quran where it justifies the use of hadith, if the Quran is true. Anyone who asks a difficult question about Islam is a hate preacher. This is the worst kind of logic and the poorest kind of ad hominem. I'm asking a simple question. If it is clear, show me the verse.
We obey what Allah has set down. We obey what Allah has set down.
Yeah,
and what the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
okay, what Muhammad has set down. In the lifetime of Muhammad, what did he set down?
The Quran was set down to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
He only set down the Quran. There were no hadiths at the time of Muhammad, and there were no written records at the time after Muhammad.
The prophetical traditions, the prophetical tradition of the Prophet Muhammad.
If you can remember the surah, I can't remember, but the verse says, what the messenger gives you, take it. What he forbids you, abstain from it.
Okay, so where is that verse, please? Where is that verse?
He says, whatever the Messenger Muhammad whatever
Show me the verse.
Take it. Whatever he tells you to leave it, leave it.
Show me the verse.
That is what those who do bid'ah, innovation into
Islam,
innovation, we should leave
it.
So
those that do bid'ah, leave it.
We have the sunnah.
Did you hear the principle? Those that do bid'ah, leave it. So, tell me, did Muhammad compile a single Quran, or was it done after Muhammad?
The Prophet Muhammad does not speak.
It was done after Muhammad. It was bid'ah. It was not something that Muhammad did.
Where's your evidence for this?
Did Muhammad? Your hadiths, the ones you're trying to defend right now, Sahih al-Bukhari. The point that I'm trying to make is that the Muslims demand of Christians a standard of evidence that they themselves cannot adhere to. They demand of Christians proof texts for every single one of our beliefs. But when we ask Muslims to be consistent intellectually and to show the same level of evidence in their texts, they can't do it. So I'll ask you again, brother, since Zechariah's first verse doesn't do it, do you have a better one?
There are tens of verses.
Okay, so give me another one.
Listen.
Show me where it says use hadiths to interpret the Quran.
Take a deep breath and listen for a moment.
I'm listening.
Right? When the Quran says obey the messenger.
Yes.
When he was alive.
Yep.
When they obeyed him, what did they obey?
They obeyed what he said.
So that hadith is what he said.
Okay, stop 1 second. He says a hadith is what Muhammad said, and that's why they obey it. However, this is not what happens when Muslims are using hadiths. Muslims are using a secondary corpus of texts that came 200 years after the events. I am asking for the Quranic justification for that usage. No, all you have justified is that the first Muslim community should have followed Muhammad, and I agree, you've proven that. But where is the proof that you use a later corpus of text to interpret the Quran? Show me in the Quran.
Okay, if the messenger has...
There is no later corpus. The Muslims continue to.
I'm sorry, 1 second. This brother is.
If the messenger has died, okay,
Yeah.
then how do we follow the messenger without narrations?
Okay. So he said, how can we follow the prophet without narrations? Well, I would suggest to you that the Quran doesn't say that you have to. There are many ways. Let me answer this brother's question.
You're an alim now.
Let me answer this brother's question, Zachariah, since you've already failed to provide evidence. You failed to provide evidence.
I showed you in the Quran.
1 second.
Surah Muhammad chapter 47.
1 second. Let me answer this brother's point. He's made an interesting point. It deserves an answer. Okay. So he's saying, how can we obey Muhammad without following narrations? Well, I would suggest to you there are many ways that Muslims could have continued in the strain of Muhammad's teaching without hadiths, by following the Quran alone. Indeed, in Surah 50:45, it states, "We know best what they say, and thou art not one to overawe them by force. So admonish them with the Quran, such as fear my warning." Does it say anything about a sunnah? No. Does it say anything about hadiths? No. It says use the Quran. So I ask you again, where's the justification for using hadiths to interpret the Quran when the Quran is admonishing you to use the Quran alone?
The ulama said we have something called isnad, the chain of narration. The chain of narration.
Yes, you've got chains of narration. I'm asking for the justification.
Ibn Majah, Abu Hurairah.
So show me in the Quran where it says use a chain of narration.
Sahih Muslim, Sahih Bukhari.
Show me in the Quran where it justifies this. Go on.
If you adopt this line of reasoning,
Yeah.
that means you cannot follow any prophet.
Exactly.
Even Christianity, you as a Christian, you can't follow Jesus because he's not here.
course.
Finish, it's closed.
That's
The
it.
Jews can't follow Moses, he's not here.
That's right.
So you always have to have a living prophet. That means God's teaching is useless.
And this, my friend, cuts to the very heart of the matter. Is how can we follow people who have been so long since gone? Well, the fact of the matter is, hello there, Uncle Jamal, how are you?
بيسب يعني مش مقتنع بينا.
How do Christians follow Jesus? We don't follow Jesus in form, we follow the Christ in ethic. Muslims could have done the same.
What does that mean?
Muslims
What
could
does that
have
mean
done the
following
same.
ethics?
But because
Jesus, you
their
follow
religion
what he said.
is deficient, they had to create something new. Innovation, bid'ah. So,
Do you understand that? How do you follow what Jesus
Let me
said, that
reply.
there is one God?
in Surah 12, verse 111, it
The
reads,
Quran's in Arabic.
there is in their stories instructions for men.
What is this?
Let me
What
correct
is
you
this?
with the Quran. The
What
Quran
is
says
this?
when the Quran is being recited, pay
I
heed that thou
have
may
only
obtain
one
mercy.
book.
I am reading to
How many
you
books of
your own
you?
holy book,
How
and
many
you
books?
don't want to listen.
Listen.
So,
Listen me.
there is
Listen.
in their stories
Listen.
instructions for men endured with understanding.
You liar.
It is not a tale invented, but a confirmation of
Liar.
what went before it. Listen to this next line, it's
You
crucial to the
rubbish.
debate.
Only
A
one book.
detailed exposition
Only one
of
book.
all things,
Al-Qur'an
and a
al-Karim.
guide and a mercy to
liar.
any such
Liar.
as believe.
Liar.
The Quran is saying that it
Quran
alone
number
is a
one.
perfect exposition.
For Allah
Why
subhanahu wa
then
ta'ala.
Where do Muslims contradict their own holy book by inventing extra material to explain what the Quran says is already perfect? Please answer that question. Zachariah, answer that question.
Look at my face. Do you want to do with your Bible?
Answer that question.
Right now.
I've asked you a question.
You always want to go to the Quran.
Zachariah, answer the
You
question.
always want to go to the Quran. You can never do with your Bible.
Answer the question.
You can never do with your own Bible.
Okay,
because your Bible
Zachariah doesn't
What
want to
about
answer the
Jeremiah?
question.
Okay, Jeremiah 8 verse 8.
Would you
Can
like to
explain
answer the
Jeremiah
question?
8 verse 8,
You
please?
don't want to listen to any
I
answer.
am listening.
You don't want to listen to any answer.
You don't want to talk to me.
You are speaking.
Answer the question.
Speaking this way is like walking against a concrete wall. You have made a point you have decided that you don't accept any answer. That's the point you're making.
Okay, so you don't want to answer the question. Okay, is there any Muslim here that wants to answer the question I've just asked? The Quran says that it is a detailed exposition of all things. So show me in the Quran where it justifies the use of hadith. If the Quran is true, show me in the Quran where it tells you how to perform salat. If it is true. Yes, sister.
Just say one thing. Why can't all religions just get on? Why? No. God comes in every religion. No. Sorry. Please let me speak. Right now, I've been christened as a Christian. I believe in. No, hang on. Let me speak, please, because otherwise it's rude. Okay. Now, I was christened as a Christian. I'm a spiritualist. Now, my belief is love thy neighbour, look after everybody, be kind and be caring. I don't care whether you're black, white, blue, green, yellow, whatever colour, whatever religion you are, be kind to one another. Then that way you have peace on earth. So you shouldn't be shouting at one another. No, please. No, but you're talking over me, so please be rude. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, whether I'm a woman, you're a man. You believe in Islam, you believe in whatever religion. Be kind to one another. And then none of this shouting would be happening, would it?
A cocktail of religions is no good.
No, but your belief, I respect your beliefs and respect mine.
Of course, I hear what you're saying, but you must remember there are those people in their own religions that who propagate hate, as this gentleman here, as right now here. Now,
He's just labelled me a hate preacher. Zachariah's labelled me a hate preacher.
Hang on, please.
So, okay, if you want to talk to Zachariah, I'm going to step out of this conversation. You talk to Zachariah. So, I'm asking a question. Zachariah doesn't want to answer it. My question is, the Quran makes a clear statement, and the clear statement is that the Quran is a detailed exposition of all things. This is the Quranic claim. That's what the Quran says. Now, which of the Muslims here does not believe the Quran? When it says a detailed exposition of all things, does it mean all or does it mean some? Does it mean all or does it mean part? It's obvious it means all. And yet Muslims cannot use the Quran alone to exposition their faith. They have to use hadiths. They have to use other kinds of literature. So I'm asking Muslims, just as the Islamic Dawah team does here at Speaker's Corner, to show me where is the justification for the use of hadiths. Is there any Muslim that can answer this simple question? So the question is, the Quran says in Surah 12, 111, there is in their stories instruction for men endued with understanding. It is not a tale invented, but a confirmation of what went before it, a detailed exposition of all things, and a guide and a mercy to any such as believe. And it's speaking about the Quran.
What's your interpretation of that?
So,
what's your interpretation?
Well, my point to you is that the Quran is saying that it doesn't need hadiths. It is giving a detailed exposition of all things, and that Muslims have invented hadith in contradiction to their own book. Show me in the Quran where it justifies the creation and use of hadiths to interpret the Quran.
First of all, that verse you read doesn't say Muslims made up their own hadith. And the second evidence I have is the Quran says Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul, which means follow me and obey the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Right? And the Prophet Muhammad, we follow his sunnah. Right? And that's my evidence to you that we follow the hadith, because Allah says, obey me and obey the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Okay? So the word sunnah is right. The word sunnah means following the teaching example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So we follow his way, the way he ate, the way he talked, the way he went to the toilet as well, the way he
had many women,
the way just everything about him. We follow every single way of the Prophet upon him. Okay, so that's my evidence to you that we follow the Sunnah Hadith because Allah says, follow me and follow the Prophet.
You don't follow him.
Okay, so my question to you is, where is the justification for the creation and use of the Sunnah in the Quran?
I just told you.
Right,
Allah
said,
says,
hold on one
right?
second. Let's listen carefully. Listen, one second. Allow me to reply now. Allow me to reply. Firstly, I didn't. No, one second. Sorry, 1 second. This surah and ayah that I used, I didn't use it to claim anything about Muslims. What I said was that the Quran is claiming about itself that it is a detailed exposition of all things. If it is a detailed exposition of all things, the very use of the hadith contradicts the Quran, because the hadith are giving details extra to the Quran. There is an inconsistency. Now hold on. The second part of your argument was that the Quran clearly states you follow the Quran and you follow the Prophet. I accept that that is what the Quran says, but that means that the Muslims who were first in following Muhammad followed Muhammad in keeping with the Quranic instruction. It does not justify the creation of a second layer of literature 200 years later that are then used to interpret the Quran. This is bid'ah, this is innovation, this is inconsistency within Islam.
You're contradicting yourself.
When you say fictitious fable, I've got it from your Quran.
First of all, you're speaking
It
about
says
the
it,
Quran.
I'll read it to you again.
Listen.
First of all, you're speaking.
Fictitious fable is a 200 years fiction in your mind if you have something inside your skull there.
Right, so he says it's.
First of all- no, no,
he
first
says
of
it. No,
all-
hold
first of
on.
all-
He's made a point. I need to address that point. He says that 200 years later I made it up. When was Sahih al-Bukhari collected?
Sahih al-Bukhari.
What year?
Bukhari was in 200 years.
What,
But
sorry?
Bukhari's,
Thank you, 200
Bukhari's
years.
teachers. Listen. Don't be selective.
Carry on.
Listen, if you are making a point that the Quran is wrong, of course you as a Christian you believe the Quran is wrong. That doesn't make Christianity right. You can say.
But it doesn't make anything right. We're just
Yeah.
people. Are you not a person like I am? If I
Yeah.
cut you, do you not
Ju-
bleed?
The fact
Because we
that
believe in
the
different
fact that
things,
you're
does it
trying
mean
to
that we
drum
have
it
to hate
in,
each other? Does it mean
you
we
know,
have to
by
have
hook or by
confusion
crook,
between
that the Quran is wrong,
I
doesn't
didn't
make
say
your
so. I didn't say
Christianity
so.
right.
Why we need
Sorry,
people?
Your Christianity is idolatry.
No, hold on. You've made no. 1 second. 1 second. You've
No,
made a point. No, I'm sorry. You have made a point that I invented this idea that the hadiths came 200 years later. That's the accusation.
That's not.
Does the evidence support that? No.
Factual statement.
Sahih al-Bukhari was collected in 870 AD. Sahih al-Muslim was collected in 875 AD. Abu Dawood was collected in 888 AD. Jamal al-Tirmidhi was collected in 892 AD. And Sunan al-Suwara was created in 915 AD. So I'm not making it up. That's what the historical evidence says.
He's just trying to drum it.
We're not going. First of all, right?
This
You're
is
talking-
an exposed
listen, I know,
psychological
I know.
way, a
One second,
psychological
yeah.
warfare. That's
You're talking about the Quran as if your book is perfect. First of all, right, your book has many contradictions. No, I'm not changing subjects.
No,
I'm saying, right?
that is the subject.
No,
That is
I'm
the
saying,
subject.
I'm saying,
That
no,
is
no,
the
I'm
subject.
making a point. I'm making a point,
That is
right?
your subject. That's your
You're talking about the Bible. You're talking about the Quran,
intention.
right? As if your book is perfect.
That's the only thing you have
First
in
of all-
mind. You have nothing else in mind.
Let me finish.
We're talking about the Quran. I'm asking a really simple question. This is fundamental to Sunni Islam. The use of hadith is used by Muslims to interpret the Quran. So, no, the answer that you've given me doesn't meet the criterion of evidence that is demanded by the Islamic Dawah team here at Speaker's Corner. I want a clear verse that shows that's fine. But what I'm saying to you, what I'm saying to you, brother, what I'm saying to you is that in Islam, you have no justification for the use of hadith. It is bid'ah. It is innovation where it justifies the use of hadith. You can shut me up. Just show me.
That is his psychological way.
Where we're speaking.
That's
but
the way
we're not going to go nowhere.
Yeah, he doesn't want to go anywhere.
So what I'm trying to say is, right?
Simple question. He's saying, is there
What I'm trying to say is, right?
Brother, what did he say?
He has heard tens of ayahs from the Quran.
They gave him the answer.
Show me one. My response, yeah. So my response to his argument.
Example is the example of the ayah of the Quran that says.
All right, do you want to make
No,
So these brothers have tried to justify.
he bought that.
These brothers have tried to justify the use of hadiths by quoting verses in the Quran that command Muslims to obey Allah and to obey Muhammad. Now, that means at that time, that verse was applicable. However, just like there are other verses in the Quran that are not applicable, when Muhammad died, it seems that the witness of the Quran is that you just follow the Quran. The Quran says follow it alone. I'll show you a verse. Yeah, I'll show you a verse. For example, in 6:19, in Surah 6:19, it says, "Say what thing is most weighty in evidence. Say, Allah is witness between me and you. This Quran hath revealed to me by inspiration that I may warn you and all whom it reaches." There is no mention of a sunnah. There is no mention of a prophetic tradition. It's talking about the Quran alone. What? The other verses obey Allah and Muhammad. So obey the Prophet. Yes. But now the Prophet is dead. Where's the justification for the hadiths?
Who is the Rasul? Is the Prophet?
He's now dead.
He's now dead.
Yes.
What is the hadith? Is he dead as well?
Is the hadiths Muhammad?
Sorry, yeah, the hadith.
So you're saying that a corpus of literature is a person? Is a corpus of literature a person?
When the Quran says obey the
Are you
Prophet,
commanded to obey a person or a book?
you obey both.
How do we obey?
Both. So show me the reference to the book.
How do we obey?
To the book. You want
How
a
do
reference to
we
the book?
obey?
Yes, I want a reference to the hadiths.
How do we
To the
obey?
hadith?
Yes.
It's the verse that we put.
How do
No,
we obey him?
that
How
verse
can we
that you
obey
gave talks about a person. It doesn't talk about a
How
book.
can we obey him?
How can you
How
obey
can you
him?
follow a person?
I'll give you
don't know what he
examples.
says?
No.
I will give you examples.
Say, Allah wa Rasulah.
Yeah, I'll give you examples. You asked a question. No, brother. It doesn't matter what happens in your country. This is Speaker's Corner. This is the UK, and he can film here. If you don't want to be on film, walk away. Okay. So the question that I am asking. You asked the question.
answered you.
No, he
you're
didn't.
ignoring
No, he
it.
didn't. The
You're
question.
ignoring
No, let me answer
Again.
your question. Let me answer your question.
So
the question that the brother asked.
It's running
The
away.
question that the brother asked is, how can we follow Muhammad? Well, let me give you some other examples of the way you could have followed your prophet without inventing hadiths. You could have followed it in the same way that Christians do. We Christians follow the Christ, but we don't follow him in form.
How does that deny the
We
hadith?
follow him in ethic.
How does that deny
Which
hadith?
means that we don't need literature that tells us what clothes he wore, how he ate, how he went to the toilet, how he had sex, who he had sex with, what age they were. We don't need to follow literature like that because we follow the ethic of Christ, which is an ethic of loving God with all our heart, mind, souls and being, and loving our brothers as ourselves in faith, and loving our neighbours as ourselves.
Where did you bring
So,
that from?
what?
Where did you bring that from?
From the Gospels.
Yeah?
Yes.
It says that Jesus
it
was like
does.
this and you follow it.
Yes, this is what it says,
If
and this
there's a
is what we
narration
follow.
if there's a narration that says Jesus done this, are you going to follow or no?
No, you're missing the point. We Christians do not have to follow the Christ in his every detail.
No.
We follow him in the ethic that he embodied and try to embody that ethic within ourselves.
Let's go back to our
Now, I am asking the Muslims to be consistent. They demand of Christians proof texts for everything we believe. So now I simply ask the Muslims to do the same. Show me in the Quran where it justifies the use of hadiths, not simply following the Prophet. Where does it say use hadith literature?
So you're saying that it contradicts?
Yes.
So you're saying that the Prophet and the hadith are two separate things?
Well, is
that what you're saying?
Yes. Are you saying
you need to
hadiths
prove
are a
that.
person?
You need to prove
I
that.
will prove that.
Yeah, prove
I will prove that. Is there anyone here who would like to argue that a book of hadiths is the Prophet Muhammad?
Not every book.
Thank you. There, I've proved it.
No, you didn't prove it. I said not every book.
got to shout or you got to listen?
I'm speaking so that everyone can hear me.
All right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the book of the Hadith,
Yeah.
I agree, is wrote 250,000 years after the Prophet Muhammad
Thank
died.
you.
Some
But-
of them are false.
So the earlier Muslim who accused me of lying is now corrected.
But that doesn't mean Islam is not correct.
Okay, carry on.
Doesn't mean Islam is not right.
Go on.
If we as a Muslim, we don't agree about a lot of hadiths as well.
I agree.
Quran is the main things for us.
Yeah.
Same as your Bible, the main things for us.
Yeah.
And I think we will not be Muslim if we don't accept Christianity and Judaism our religion as well.
Okay.
That end of the story. So you're going somewhere else about Who's come first, the egg or the chicken? Is the hadith important for us? Not too important. The Quran is too important for us. Does that make you happy?
Okay, may I reply?
No, you could reply, but don't ask me any question.
I'm going to reply. So my reply to the brother's argument, and the brother's argument is essentially, firstly, he admits, and I thank you because at least he understands and he knows,
No, but I'm not.
that the hadith literature
different if your agenda.
came
It's different if
200 years after the events.
Wrote
Secondly, he admits, and I agree with him because at least he knows what he's talking about, that Muslims have no agreement about which hadiths to use to interpret the Quran. So, just like Christians don't have a consensus on the canon of their Bible, it's a non-argument. However,
can I just help
I
you
am
out
asking
here?
for you.
Help
No, one
you
second.
out. Help
I
you
am
out here.
asking. No,
Hadith-
1 second.
Hadith is not
I am
about-
no.
Hadith is
Sir,
not. Sorry.
I'm not touching you. Don't touch me.
No, I'm not.
I'm asking you to show me the justification for the use of
You got an
hadiths in the
agenda in your
Quran.
head.
Can you show me?
I'm gonna try to help you out.
Show me.
Follow
Hadith,
the Prophet.
my brother.
How can you
Hadith,
follow the Prophet?
Exactly.
How can you follow the
How
Prophet?
can you follow the Prophet?
Hadith has nothing to do with them.
So the answer that the Muslims came up with was innovation.
No, it's not.
You
innovation. The Quran says
invented
that
a whole system
The Quran says that
because
Rasul.
Muhammad
Follow the Prophet.
died and he gave you no way,
No way.
no way.
If I bring a hadith 700 years, 1,000 years after the death of Muhammad, you can still follow it.
So, you know, can
Is
you
this
see
correct?
how the
Is
Christianity
this
argue with
correct?
you about the hadith?
Sorry,
Because you've got so many
it
hadiths
doesn't
not
command
correct.
you to follow a series of traditions and sayings in the Quran. It commands you to follow Allah and the Prophet. The Prophet is now dead, so all you have left is the Quran.
No, the hadiths are there as well.
So show me the justification for them.
Because the Quran says that Rasul. Follow the Prophet.
Follow the Prophet.
Exactly.
Is the Prophet a book called the Hadith?
No, but there
Thank
are
you.
narrations.
So you're
There are
not
narrations.
following the
That
Prophet.
doesn't prove your point. There are still narrations.
What did he say?
There are still narrations about the Prophet.
Don't put that camera on me, mate.
What did he say?
The Quran says follow the Prophet.
It's Speaker's Corner. He's allowed to film.
He says,
What did he say?
if you want to, it's called the last sermon. He basically said,
Okay.
keep hold of the Quran.
Yeah.
Keep hold of the Quran.
Yeah.
I leave behind for you two things: the Quran and my Sunnah, which is the Hadith. That's
Right.
it.
Okay. And this, what are you quoting when you say this last sermon? When the literature that you're getting that from? What is it called, please? What? Sorry.
The last sermon.
The last sermon. When was it written?
When was it written? But
Yep.
can you not put that camera on me, please?
No.
Just respect it. You only need a voice. Don't do my face.
Dude,
Please,
dude.
respect it.
It's Speaker's Corner. It's a free country. He's allowed to film.
Yes, he is.
No, everyone here is filming. You're already on camera. Someone has caught your face on camera already.
Exactly.
Why do you assume
You're
that?
already on camera,
Are you
friend.
embarrassed of?
Friend,
listen, carry on.
it's a moot
That's
point.
fine.
Okay. So my point to you then, he's trying to justify the use of hadiths by quoting a piece of literature called the Last Sermon. Now, I would like to know when this is dated. This manuscript that you're quoting. What is its date, please?
The Quran says follow the Prophet. Why are you going too far?
Oh no! I'm trying to
Quran
deal
says
with
follow the
one
Prophet.
one guy's point at a time,
last
please.
sermon in
He's
there.
raised a fair
Finish from
point.
this point.
You
I'll
look,
try and find it.
you look it up.
If I had it, what's after that?
Okay, when you
I
look,
said it was yesterday. What's
look it
next?
up, and then we'll talk. Let's find the date, and then we'll talk. Because I think you're quoting literature that comes much later.
No, it was.
It's coming up with a
Literature
Do you know
much
what the
later.
last sermon is? Do you know what the last sermon is?
I think it's bid'ah.
The last. I said, do you know what the last sermon is?
It's
Have you ever heard of it?
last words of Muhammad before he died on his deathbed.
Yeah.
So I have
Well,
heard of
it
it.
wasn't at his deathbed. No, it wasn't at his deathbed.
Okay.
It was on Hajj. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was during Hajj.
So wait, hold on. So your justification for using hadiths is not to quote the Quran, but to quote even more literature outside of the Quran.
Muhammad said it. Muhammad himself said it.
Follow the Prophet.
Prove it.
When I come to you with a
Wait a
narration
minute,
from
you're
the
talking about
Prophet,
the
you say,
Quran.
No, that's different.
Prove Muhammad
Moment.
said it.
Quran said. Muhammad said the Quran.
Like you proved that Jesus was born from a virgin.
Don't
woman.
try to
You
change
proved
the
that,
subject.
You proved that.
Don't try to change the subject.
Yeah.
Christian's an idiot.
Okay, let's not change the subject.
Okay,
yeah?
let's
The
talk to
Quran
you.
says follow the Prophet.
Follow the
If I come
Prophet.
to you with a,
Yeah.
just listen to me.
Okay.
If I come to you with a narration,
Yes.
that says the Prophet said, for example, this prayer is 4 rak'at. You have to pray that way. How is that not following the Prophet? You
Okay.
say no, this is different.
Sir, this is the reason why I would say it's not following the Prophet.
Yeah.
It's not following the Prophet because Muslims themselves cannot agree upon which hadiths are reliable.
Why did you bring that?
It's not following the Prophet because the hadiths themselves are not the Prophet.
Not every,
The Quran makes a clear instruction to follow the Prophet. I agree with you.
Okay.
But it doesn't make a clear instruction to create hadiths.
Have you studied science of change or no?
This is irrelevant to the topic.
No, this is not relevant to the topic.
Okay.
If I bring a narration for you that the Prophet said, pray that way.
Yeah.
How is that not following the?
Okay, so why do you use hadiths? Explain to us why do you use to follow the Prophet?
Yeah, to get to the
So,
Prophet.
for example, when the Quran tells you how to pray,
Yeah, did the Quran say like specifically how to pray?
it doesn't. You're
No,
right.
it doesn't.
No,
The
you're right.
The Hadith tells us.
Okay.
The Prophet tells
So
us.
you use hadiths to fill in the gaps created by the Quran. Is that correct?
Don't change the subject. You say
No, I'm not changing the
yes,
subject.
you say how can you prove that the hadiths are authentic? The authority of a hadith. How can you prove?
No, one
I
second.
said to you, the Quran says أطيع الرسول. Follow the Prophet.
Are you using the hadiths to fill in the gaps created by the Quran? The Quran does not tell you how to perform salat. It merely commands you to perform salat. So you use the hadiths to know how. Is that not fair? Am I misrepresenting your religion?
No. Some of the stuff are not fully clarified in the Quran.
Sorry?
Some of the stuff are not fully clarified in the Quran.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you are using hadiths to fill in the gaps created by the Quran.
That's what the Quran says to us.
Okay.
Follow the Prophet.
Thank you. So, this contradicts what the Quran says. I read it to you. Surah 12, verse 111. There is in their stories instruction dued with understanding. It is not a hadith invented, but a confirmation of what went before it, a detailed exposition of all things.
Okay.
Does all mean all, or does it mean some?
Does that deny following the Prophet?
Yes.
Can you prove that?
It denies the use of hadiths.
Prove that it
The
denies use of
the
hadith.
Quran commands Muslims to follow the Prophet. I agree.
How does that deny?
I agree.
How does that deny the use of a hadith? Prove it to me.
Because you have already said that you use hadiths to fill in the gaps left by the Quran. So,
Let me speak.
no.
Please don't
Let,
put the camera on my face.
no. What the Quran says that it is a detailed exposition of all things. So my question to you, my question to you is: does all mean all, or does it only mean part?
What about there's an explanation of everything? Why can we not follow the explanation of the
No,
Prophet?
he wants to talk now.
Why can we not follow it?
Can you just not put the camera on me?
If there's a speaker's corner, he is allowed to film.
Now, if the Quran says that it is a detailed explanation, can that also entail that the Prophet Muhammad's explanation of the Quran is also part of the Quran?
I agree with him.
For no
It
reason.
can't be.
That's what he's saying. For no reason, you can't use the hadith to clarify, to explain what the Quran came with.
That's what I agree with him.
Bro, your premises.
He says, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ ذِكْرًا. I'm quoting the Arabic and he's going to translate for you.
Okay.
وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. This is in Surah, Surah 16,
Surah 16.
verse 44.
I have a translation here, so I don't need one. Thank you. Surah 16. What's ayah, please?
44.
44.
And I checked 60.
Let's do one thing at a time.
It's the same surah, it's just 66.
Okay. My hand's getting cold, so this is slowing down. So, what you said, Surah 16, ayah 44, yeah? We send them with clear signs and books of dark prophecies.
There's a mistake there.
And we have
There's a
sent
mistake
down
there. Why
unto
is there
thee
a
also
bracket there?
the message.
وَأَنزَلْنا is in
Hold
the
on.
Quran, there's a mistake there.
The Muslim. What's your name, brother?
Asim.
Asim. Bob. Asim is saying that there is a mistake because of the insertion of the brackets. This is a common thing done in Quranic translation. I agree with him, it is misleading. So, I'll read it without the brackets so you can be satisfied. With clear signs and books of dark prophecies, and we have sent down unto thee the message that thou may... No, I'm quoting the ayah. How would you like me to read this ayah? With or without the brackets?
I'll tell you how to read.
Okay.
Firstly.
No.
Have a note.
No, 1 second.
Let's calm down.
You've made one point. I would like now to respond to that point.
No, hold on. I
Yeah?
haven't made the point yet.
You're using this surah as evidence. One second. You're using this surah and ayah as evidence. I would like now to consider your evidence to marshal the argument forward.
That's fine, but wait, but wait. Within your response, you've committed a fallacy. Two fallacies.
I haven't responded yet. You interrupted me.
No. You've made two fallacies.
I haven't made any fallacy. You interrupted me. I haven't said anything except trying to recite your Quran, and then you said there was a mistake because I had quoted the brackets.
Okay, after you finish,
So,
I'll mention the fallacy.
So you've prophesized my two fallacies. I would be interested to know what my two fallacies are now that you've prophesied them.
As soon as you start speaking, I found the fallacy.
The surah and the ayah.
This is the first time that God
The surah and the
brother.
Yeah. Shall we stand this way? He wants to talk. We move this way a little. We move this way a little. The guy wants to speak. So, you have quoted Surah 16, Ayah 44 as evidence, and we'll come to that as well, as evidence that this justifies the creation of hadiths and their use in interpretation of the Quran. So let's see if we see that clearly. We sent down with clear signs and books of dark prophecies, and we have sent down unto thee also the message, that thou mayest explain clearly to men what is sent for them, and what that they may give thought. Now I hear nothing about hadiths there. What was the other ayah? What was the other ayah?
Now let me respond to that.
What was the other ayah?
Hold on, let me explain something to you. This is the number one. Go on.
Do you agree, Do you agree that the Quran orders us to follow the Prophet?
What?
Do you agree that the Quran orders us to follow the Prophet?
The Quran commands the first Muslims to follow the Prophet.
Alright, so you have to prove to me, because you're saying there's nowhere in the hadith, you have to prove to me that the Quran doesn't order us to follow that.
Yeah, I'll show you some evidence. That's fine. So in Surah 50:45, Zechariah accuses anyone of being a hate preacher that asks him a question that he can't answer. Anyone who asks Zechariah a question that he can't answer is a hate preacher. Yeah. I think you... Dude, have the police stop following you. Have the police stop following you. Right? So in Surah 50, you asked me for evidence. You asked me for evidence. Okay.
Are you qualified to give us?
Sorry, 1 second. Surah 50, Ayah 45. We know best what they say, and thou art not one to overawe them by force. So admonish them with the Quran, such as fear my warning. Where is any mention of the Sunnah or the Hadith to use in admonishment?
Can I respond?
Says the Quran alone. Quran alone.
Brother. Wait, hold on. Sorry. It's okay. Okay, now can I respond to your fallacy?
Of course.
Okay.
My two fallacies.
Yes. No. You got more now.
Okay, please.
Building up.
Please.
Okay. First point.
Yeah.
This is common amongst all linguists. All linguists would agree with me on this point. Doesn't matter English, Hebrew, Bangladeshi, Arabic. All linguists would agree with the point I'm about to make. When you translate from language to language, the meaning gets lost. Okay. Let's pay attention. When you translate from language to language, the meaning of the Quran or any other book gets lost. If I was to make a joke in Bengali and I translate into English, the meaning gets lost and therefore the joke is no longer there. Similarly, the Quran was written in Arabic, not just any Arabic, Fusha Arabic, clean cut Arabic. Yeah? Okay? So hold on, let me speak. Okay. Now, before we actually go into what it means, we have to have a very detailed understanding of exegesis. Let me give an example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ رِجْسٌ مِنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Now, if you were to translate this word to word into the translation, meaning gets lost. How? Because Allah said, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, ijtinab. Basically, Allah's commanding. But the English language doesn't have anything to facilitate that commandment. In English language, the verb comes in the beginning of the sentence, called the imperative sentence. It comes in the beginning of the sentence, and it basically tells you that it's a command. But when you translate this verse, you can't tell if it's a command or not, because in Arabic, is the word itself means it's a command. Now, what point am I making? I'm not jumping here place to place. I'm trying to make the point to you that you can't just look at a translation and read that and say, yeah, I know the answers. You have to have detailed understanding of Arabic language. No, it's not deficient. It's
Don't
not
get involved.
Okay.
Look.
I said talking shit. I'm talking.
I'm saying involved.
No, guys, calm down. Continue with your point.
I'm saying to you, there's a consensus amongst all linguists that they will say to you that if you translate from a language to language, that doesn't mean that the language is deficient. This is how language works. When you translate from language to language, the meaning gets lost. Point number one, that's the first fallacy you made. Point number two, وَأَنزَلْنَا أَخِي. What does وَأَنزَلْنَا mean? We sent down. In this translation, they made a mistake. It put it in brackets. Akhi, why is it in brackets? Brackets is basically someone's attempt to explain the verse. Akhi, Allah said وَأَنزَلْنَا. Allah said we sent down. So why is it in brackets? This is a flawed translation. It's a flawed translation.
Okay. May I reply?
No, I'm still responding. That's the second fallacy. The third fallacy. You said, where does it say hadith and sunnah? Akhi, have you heard of the term synonyms? Sunnah, explanation, hadith, these are all synonyms. These are all synonyms of the term explain. Allah said, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. What's the translation, akhi? We sent down. No, we want to look at this translation because this one's already made a mistake.
Okay, so
no.
Whilst you're looking at that translation, whilst you're looking at that translation, okay, I know I am going to respond. I am going to respond. I'm going to respond to 2 points, and then you come back to the third. That's fine. Hold them, and you can come back in a second. Do you notice how the Muslims don't want me to respond? Zachariah, the man who demands manners from others, has no manners himself. Now, no, 1 second. 1 second. This brother is saying essentially that the Quran is not a message to mankind. He's saying that it only exists in Arabic. Why does Allah not speak to me in my own language? Why does he demand that I become a slave of the Arabs and that I should submit myself to what they tell me that God is saying? No. He says that the Quran that I'm quoting is wrong because it has words that it puts in brackets. 1 second. Do you see? So 1 second. 1 second. I am going to reply.
The Bible you read isn't in your language. The Bible you read isn't in English, bro.
So
what's your complaint to the
thank you. They shout because they don't want you to listen. No, they have admitted that the Quran is given in a language that is not to the world. That the Quran is only in Arabic.
So the Bible's only
now,
in Greek and Aramaic.
The brother created a fallacy in a fiction. The brother created a fallacy in a fiction. He said that my Quranic translation, incidentally translated by a Muslim. This isn't my invention. This is a Muslim that translated the Quran. Incidentally, this Muslim is a linguist. So, this brother now needs to provide his credentials that he is a better linguist than Yosef Ali. Also, he criticized this Quran because words that he admitted were in the text had been put in brackets. He spoke for about 8 minutes and he did not provide a single verse that justified the idea that the hadiths are called for in the Quran. So I'll ask you again, show me an ayah in the Quran that justifies the use of hadiths to interpret the Quran. You gave me no verse. You didn't say that.
Let me ask you a question. If I had given special favours to him because he had certain characteristics, and you wanted those same favours, wouldn't it be a good idea for you to emulate what he's been doing?
Yes, I agree.
You agree? Okay, so in Surah, it's all right, man. In Surah Fatiha,
people at the back that need to.
In Surah Fatiha,
So let's have a detailed conversation.
Which surah?
That's the first surah of the Quran.
Okay.
we ask Allah to bless us like the ones that He has blessed.
Right, okay.
And then in another verse in the Quran.
Sorry, can we just stick with the first one? Where does it say?
So it says, look, show us the straight way, the way of those on whom thou hast blessed, bestow thy grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Show us the straight way.
Yeah. Now,
where does that justify the use of hadith?
I will tell you. Because in another part of the Quran,
which is?
Someone get it, but you can find it. Allah tells us who these blessed people are.
Okay.
Yeah, and Allah tells us that these blessed people are the prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sadiqeen, the truthful, the martyrs, and
people of
the
the book.
righteous.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if I'm gonna be blessed like the prophets, or the Prophet Muhammad specifically, I need to know how to follow him. And where is that information contained? Is it contained in the Quran or is it contained in the Hadith?
Well, that's a very good question. Let's see what the Quran says.
Well, I'm telling you, I don't need to answer me. I can answer that question.
No.
The information on Muhammad, peace be upon him, is contained in the Hadith. So if I want to be blessed like Muhammad, I will need to follow the instructions or the way Muhammad is behaved, which is contained in the Hadith.
Okay.
It's very simple.
So his argument is that because Allah said He is going to bless them, because you pray and Allah will bless you, you need to be able to know what the prophets did so that you can receive that blessing. Is that essentially your argument? Okay. I did not hear in that argument any verse that justified a secondary corpus of material. But what I do read in the Quran, what I do read in the Quran is there is in their stories instructions for men endued with understanding. It is not a hadith invented, but a confirmation of what went before it, a detailed exposition of all things.
What does that mean to you?
So, it means to me that according to the Quran, that all you need is in the Quran.
You are sick, man.
That is literally, firstly,
where does it?
Sorry,
When the Quran says all, does it mean all or does it mean part? Does it mean all or does it mean some?
Let me answer the question. Firstly, there's two problems you've got. One, you're misunderstanding that verse, and two, you're being very literal in your understanding. You need to understand it. Literalism, is a form of extremism, my friend.
Yes, I agree.
Do not be overly literal in your understanding of that verse.
Yeah. Are you an encyclopedia?
So basically, if you read the verse again.
Are you an encyclopedia?
There is in their stories. Zachariah, I find it funny you're telling people to be quiet when you're interrupting. Once again demonstrating poor character. There is in their stories instructions for men endued with understanding. It is not a tale invented, but a confirmation of what went before it, a detailed exposition of all things, and a guide and a mercy to any such as believe. Believe in what?
In the message of Islam.
Does it say this here? It's talking about what, sorry, in this? What is it talking
about?
about?
Let me be literalist. That's how you're going to lead yourself astray.
What is it talking about?
You need to go to the people that understand the Quran and understand the meaning.
What is it talking about? I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question. What does it talk about in this verse?
I wouldn't advise a Muslim to do what you're doing, and I wouldn't advise a non-Muslim to do what you're doing.
You don't want to answer my question? That's fine.
Let me.
Would you answer the question?
No.
This verse, what is it talking about?
I'm not listening.
What is it talking about?
Hold on. Let me speak.
Okay, you don't know. I want you to answer this.
No. You made a point before. I'm going to adjust your point before.
Okay.
Let me adjust your point.
So let me be clear what my point is.
You spoke for a very long time. You spoke for a very long time. I'm going to speak now, okay? Okay, first of all, me as well, we're all being a bit passionate here. Let's calm down, speak like normal human beings. Okay. Calm down. Okay. You said before that because the Quran cannot be translated to other languages is deficient. Okay. I didn't say that.
I didn't say that.
Someone said it. Let me make something clear. Let me make something clear. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Let me make my point clear. I'm saying that when you translate the Quran, the Fusha Arabic, into the English language, even if it's Shakespeare English language, it doesn't do justice to the meaning of the Quran. Why? Because we have to agree upon something. How do we derive semantics? We derive it from the syntax. Now, if the syntax of the Arabic language, such as fi'al amr, the commanding verbs, aren't facilitated in the English grammar, then you can't derive that semantic. This is clear cut in language.
That's it, bruv. You're
if you
deriving
don't know,
rulings and you don't know.
All you're doing is giving a lecture about linguistics. linguistics, not addressing my question. I am asking a question for a hadith verse.
You don't know.
Brother, just to speed this along. Let's speed this along. I agree with you. Now, address my question.
Okay, you agree with me?
I agree. Address my question. Yes.
Okay, now go learn the Arabic language. You agree with me? Go learn the Arabic language. To understand the Quran, go learn. You agree with me?
I agree with you.
So you got yourself in a dilemma now. Now you have to learn the Arabic language. You have to learn the Arabic because you said you agree with me, and therefore you have to learn the Arabic language.
I agree with you.
Okay.
To be a Muslim means you have to be a slave of the Arabs.
Yes.
To be a slave.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. Right. So my question to you. My question to you. You have given a wonderful exposition upon the accuracy of linguistic translation. Fantastic. Brilliant. Now show me in the Quran where it justifies the use of hadiths.
Okay, I said to you, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ.
Which surah is that, please?
The same one.
1644.
1644. Yeah, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُم يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. That it says, Mahmoud translate, help me translate, that we have sent down the Quran.
So you can follow it here.
We don't need to. We don't need that.
No, this
He's
is
an Arab.
They're going to pick up your voice.
He's not even Arab.
So
He's not even Arab. He's Indian.
Are you Arab?
He's an Arab.
So
He's an Arab.
now notice this: the non-Arab is referring to the Arab to find out what Allah says, and then he says he's not a slave of the Arabs.
Hold on. Okay, you made another two fallacies.
So translate it. You are the one that has been given the language of Allah. So translate it for us.
Okay, brother. The semantics isn't there.
So
the syntax isn't there.
As an Arab, tell me what the translation is. What's the translation?
Some ulama said there's other words that are used here, not just to say the Quran. Some words like meanings of dhikr, it means Quran and Sunnah. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ. Obey Allah and obey the Messenger. So therefore, this is clear. This is clear from the Quran that we have to obey the Messenger, and obeying the Messenger, his teachings, his words, which is the Hadith.
No, sorry.
I'm sorry.
All you've done is justify. All you've done is evidence that the Quran commanded the first Muslims to follow Muhammad. You have not shown me any evidence that the Quran justifies the use of hadith. Now, one second. The verse that you have given, okay, reads like this. Whether you
it
accept,
doesn't read like that. It
no.
doesn't read like that.
So I'm sorry, but this guy is a linguist. You're not. If you disagree with this translation, produce your own. Produce your own translation. So Yosef Ali says, we sent them with clear signs and books of dark prophecies, and we have sent down them unto thee also the message that thou mayest explain clearly to men what is sent for them and what they may give thought. Where is any mention of the hadiths in this text?
Bob, I want to ask a question. Let me ask you a question.
No, I'm asking a question.
Can I ask a question?
Let me ask you a question. So, you're the Arab, brother. Where's the mention?
Don't worry about it. He's trying to trick you, bruv.
The word dhikr means Quran and Sunnah.
Okay, the word fikra.
Dhikr. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْر.
It means what?
It means
Quran and Sunnah.
Quran
and Sunnah.
Yeah.
Synonyms.
Does it?
Do you know what synonym is?
Wait, which one is the word
No,
fikra here?
do you know what synonym is?
English.
It's English. It's not
So
there.
which one is the word fikra? Which one is translated as the word fikra?
إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون.
Which one?
Yeah.
Because if they were going to translate it into English, you've just said that the word fikra means Quran and Sunnah. Why is it not translated?
This is English translation.
So show me any translation where it translates that word as Quran and Sunnah. Show me any translation.
I want to ask a question.
Google it. There's many translations. Show me one.
Making from
translation. I rely on the Quran. I don't rely on English translation.
You don't rely on English translation. Fine, that's fine. But that means that Islam is not a religion for me.
No.
So it isn't a religion for me. Because I will not be the slave of the Arabs that you are.
We're not slaves to Arabs. Excuse me, no. You made another fallacy.
You have made an argument. 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 You have made an argument that the word fikra means Quran and Sunnah.
Let me talk to him one question.
Yeah, one second. No, get off me. Don't grab. You have made an argument that the word fikra means Quran
Fikra, ya
and
Humar,
Sunnah.
fikra.
Yeah,
Fikra.
fikra.
It's not fikra.
Okay, so whatever the correct pronunciation is, you have made that argument. You have made that argument. So now I want you to show me any linguist, any Muslim translator that has translated this word in the way that you say it should be translated.
What difference does it make?
Produce
I
your
want
proof.
to ask question, man.
Produce
What
your
difference does it
proof.
make? I want to ask question.
Produce. Where's your proof? Produce your proof.
Even if he does, what's next?
Okay, you don't want to answer the
I want to
question.
ask-
You
what's
answer my
next?
question. No. The question that I'm asking. The question.
He's my body. He cannot. He's ignorant. He's ignorant. He cannot. He cannot.
Okay.
He cannot. Let us have a chance.
So I want to ask you a question. The same question that I asked this guy, because you have just been, it's just been said that you're an Arab.
You keep quiet.
Now the word fikra, however you pronounce it, this guy says he's translated as Quran and Sunnah. So I am asking you to produce me a Quranic translation by any linguist you choose who translates that word in the way that you claim it should be translated.
If I give you answer, am I allowed to ask you as well or no?
When you've answered my question, yes.
Okay. So,
what did I ask you?
You asked me, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Fikr means thoughts, like, the parrot, parrot, when he listens to something, dhikr.
Okay, so answer my question.
Dhikr, the religion.
He said Quran and Sunnah. You're saying religion.
Yes, Quran and Sunnah is religion. Inna nahnu nazzalna al-dhikra wa inna lahu the message, and he promised to protect it.
So I asked you to show me evidence by any linguist who translates the word that you've used in Arabic
now my turn.
into Quran and Sunnah.
Now my turn.
Where is your evidence?
Now my turn.
Show me the linguist.
If
No.
this
You haven't answered my question.
I answer.
I asked you to give me evidence that any linguist of your choosing,
You have no manners, man.
of
You are
your
rude.
choosing,
You are rude. You have no
that
manners.
translates
promised
the
me.
word
I
as
ask
you demand.
I told
Okay,
you. Am I allowed to ask questions?
So,
Okay.
you didn't answer.
If I speak.
Okay, however,
He cannot.
However,
if I speak,
even though you
listen
haven't
to me.
answered my question, I'll let you ask one question. One question.
If I am African and I speak German, am I German slave? You see how idiot you are? You see?
Are you asking or are you talking?
See, no.
Do you want me to answer the question?
Let me finish.
Do you want to answer? Do you want me to answer the question?
You attacking every African, every non-Arab, every creation. They are slave to the Arabs. But I prove to you, you are idiot because there is linguistic universities.
So
people learn different language.
So he didn't answer my question.
If you learn different language, it doesn't mean.
And now he doesn't understand the point. When I point out that non-Arabs make themselves the slaves of Arabs by following Islam, it is because Islam has demonstrated itself over 1400 years to be an imperialistic faith that destroys the native cultures of the lands that it takes over. And this is evidenced by the fact that it suppresses the native language. It demands that they imitate a 7th century Arab, that they worship in Arabic, that they pray towards an Arab city. By contrast, Christianity, when it went from Palestine into Europe and into Ethiopia, allowed the native cultures to express their faith in accordance with their own culture. The Ethiopian church did not abandon the Ethiopian language, but expressed it in their own. The Romans of the Roman period did not express Christianity in Hebrew, but in their own language. Christianity is not an imperialist faith. Now, I want to go back to the topic of the Hadith and the Quran.
Arab is not race. Arab is a tongue. Arab is not race. Arab is not race.
Show me in the
Arab is a
Quran.
tongue.
Okay.
Imam Bukhari,
I'm going to go away
Imam
and
Bukhari,
find someone who wants to answer my question.
You are chicken.
No, you just
You
don't
are
want to
coward.
talk about the Quran and
You are
Hadith.
coward.
I want to talk about
Bukhari
Quran
is
and
not Arab.
Hadith.
Bukhari
I
is
want to
not
talk
Arab.
about Quran and Hadith.
Tirmizi is not Arab. Muslim is not Arab.
Agreed.
Ibn Majah is not Arab.
Agreed.
Darqutni is not Arab.
Agreed.
You stupid.
Agreed.
Coward.
Now, so
all this
Sahih al-Bukhari
all this
had his
scholars
collection
are
in
not Arab.
870 AD.
Because you are
Sahih
donkey.
al-Muslim had his collection in 875 AD.
Yes.
Abu Dawood
Yes.
had his collection in 888 AD.
So what?
Al-Tamidi had his collection
So
in
what?
892 AD. And Al-Sugra had his collection in 915 AD.
Your God used
This
to sit in the
is
toilet.
innovation. You can silence me very easily by showing that it's justified in the Quran. Where's your proof?
What's the question? What's shouting? What exactly are you asking?
He's ignorant.
So
brother.
my
He's
the
ignorant.
point. Okay.
What is his qualification, brother?
That's fair
What is
enough.
his qualification to criticize?
Okay. Just without screaming, please don't get just without screaming and shouting. What's the question?
So the point that the question that I've been asking is simply that because the hadiths are created 200 years after Muhammad's death. One second, you asked me, I'm going to explain.
Yes.
So, because they are created 200 years after Muhammad's death, and because the Islamic Dawah team goes round Speaker's Corner demanding a high level of evidence for every Christian belief, that they should be consistent, the Muslims should be consistent in meeting the same criteria and a high level of evidence. So it would be hypocrisy otherwise. So I have asked Muslims for a clear statement from the Quran that justifies the use of this hadith literature. Now, all Muslims have been able to do is show me verses in the Quran that say obey Allah and obey the Prophet. Now I accept them at face value. That is what the Quran says. Muslims in the first century obeyed Allah and Muhammad. Muhammad died, which leaves the Quran. In the Quran, it says on many occasions that the Quran is an admonishment, the Quran is a guidance, the Quran is a mercy. And in those same statements, it never mentions hadith, it never mentions sunnah. This brother offered another verse. And these guys have argued that there's a particular word in that verse that should be translated as Quran and Sunnah. And yet I cannot find any. I cannot find any.
Be fair, man. Be fair.
I
Let him
cannot
talk,
find.
man. You cannot talk all the time.
I cannot find.
You cannot.
I cannot find.
Conclusion.
I
He
cannot
man.
find.
He cannot. Give
Did
him
you
2
see?
minutes. Give him 2
What
minutes.
can I say? I cannot find.
He doesn't finish.
I'm answering his question. Be quiet, sir. I cannot find any verse in the Quran that calls me to follow a sunnah, a tradition of literature connected to Muhammad. I can't find that verse. And so I ask Muslims to find it for me. You can have the last word and then I've got to go.
Okay, in that case, let me have the last word.
So you have the last You have the last word. Yeah, you have the last word.
So, what's
Still out of frame.
Go on.
What's this 200 years later? You said how this.
Yeah. So if this guy's accusing me of lying, so you can research this for yourself. Don't take my word for it.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying wherever you show it to me or don't show it to me, Muslims know how to pray. You're saying hadiths were what? Collected 200 years after, popped up 200 years after.
Yeah.
So how did the Muslims pray at the time, if not from the sunnah of the Prophet?
Well, it wasn't following. It was following a living tradition that was passed on, in terms of I would teach you the forms of prayer and then you would follow them.
So when that person died, are you saying 1 minute? So you're saying that when the Prophet died, for 200 years no one was praying?
No, I didn't say that. Didn't say that at all. Didn't say that at all.
Well, you did. You said.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. You're trying to put words in my mouth, but I have to go.
Oh, you want to
It's
run
power,
away?
man.
No.
It's power.
No,
Next time
I
come,
have to go.
power.
It's 3 o'clock. I gotta go.
Hang on. You said.
I gotta go.
You said that the sunnah was collected, put together 200 years after the Prophet died.
That's correct. That's
so
what all the
how
evidence
were people
shows.
praying?
So, 1 second.
I'll ask you a question. How were people praying?
They were praying through a formal tradition
Through
where
sunnah.
one person.
That you don't want to say.
Now hold on 1 second.
This is sunnah.
1 second. 1 second. Let me address that point. Let me address that point very quickly. I asked. I never ever denied.
You have all the information, but you're looking at it from with a wrong
One second.
eye.
I have never denied that there was a tradition that continued. Never. never denied that. No, I didn't. I said where was the justification for writing it down? I'll give you a hadith.
Justification for writing down what?
I'll give you a hadith.
Justification for writing down what?
Ibn Sayyid al-Qudri reported Muhammad said, "Do not write anything from me except Quran. Anyone who writes any my own handwriting's terrible. Anything other than the Quran shall erase it." That's your own hadith.
Okay,
There's no justification to justify the writing of hadith. Yes, because Islam is inconsistent and contradictory. But I've got to go.
So you're using the hadith that you don't believe we should be following.
Do you want to shake
what
my hand?
he is saying is very
No.
true
No.
because Shia,
When you come,
No.
you don't shout.
Shouting is
You don't talk
something
too
that
much.
lots of people do
Let's,
here.
if you want,
Everyone talks
it is
here.
constructive discussion.
I have to go.
Just making points.
It is a discussion, but you call people idiots, you abuse them, and then you demand respect. Don't grab me.
I'm not grabbing you.
You accuse people of being idiots,
What is,
and then you demand respect.
what is your
You're on
credential?
video giving verbal abuse to people,
what is your
and then you're demanding respect.
What is your credential
This
to
is
criticize
hypocritical on
Quran?
your point.
What's your credential to criticize
I have to go. Take it.